My name is Graham Berry. I'm the EMEA Sales Lead for OpenShift at Red Hat. This clock's ticking away, so I've only got 20 minutes. So I just want to share some stuff around what we're seeing in the market with containers. But more importantly, why OpenShift, and the fact that this term and this project and this product, Kubernetes, is something that you all have heard about. But there's a lot more to OpenShift than just Kubernetes and what's happening in the market. So first of all, why containers? They've been around for a long time. Why are they so popular now? So software is disrupting business. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Someone is out there with a new business, a new company that's come along trying to take business away from you. And one of the biggest areas we've seen this is in retail. So Amazon is the best example of what technology can do and do to traditional providers. In the UK, Amazon have hit retailers really hard. We've had retailers that have been around for over 100 years who are now either gone out of business or on the verge of going out of business. And that's because they've not been able to keep up with the rate of change in innovation in IT. So software is really disrupting business. And your value as a company now really depends on your ability to deliver applications faster. If you look at every OpenShift success story that we have, I'd probably say 95% of those success stories all talk about speed and time to market. Customers being able to go from doing 1 deployment a week doing 200 a day. That speed is what gives you that competitive advantage to get your applications and your services out to your customers faster. This is really interesting because back in 1937, your life expectancy as an S&P 500 was 75 years. In 2016, that was as low as 13 years, and the analysts are predicting that your life expectancy as an S&P 500 customer by 2030 will be 1 year. Now, whether that's true or not remains to be seen, but what this is showing you is that businesses can no longer rely on the fact that because they've been around for a long time, they're always going to be around. And a good example recently, you may have seen the British travel company Thomas Cook, the oldest travel agent in the world, no longer with us. Because of one of the challenges they had was embracing the change in IT. So what does this mean for IT? Well, it means you need to evolve to innovate. And in all the different disciplines, whether it's development processes, whether it's your application architecture, deployment of those applications, or your application infrastructure. And containers help, and OpenShift in particular, with all of these different disciplines. We talk a lot about containers, and it seems, well, I do anyway, and what's interesting is that in 2019, only 30% of organizations had containers in production. That's going to grow significantly by 2022, and we'll talk about why. And this is why. So for the developers in the room, you probably know, you're probably all doing this already, building out microservices. 90% of applications built will be using a microservices architecture, and 95% of those applications built will be deployed in containers. So that's where this growth of the container market is coming from, and why there's going to be many more organizations with containers in production. But what's really interesting now is that developers hold a lot of power. We used to, as Red Hat, would talk to infrastructure teams, and it'd be infrastructure teams that would be the ones that would make decisions on things like container platforms. We've seen a huge shift towards development teams, and that's because container platforms need to be seen as a software development platform first, and an infrastructure platform second. That's this innovation that's happening in IT, and we've seen this as Red Hat. I've spoken to organizations where we thought we were going to win the business, and we didn't talk to the developers, and the developers had made a decision on something else. And we've even had examples where the CIO has actually given the developers the decision on which container platform they want to use. And the reason behind that is that these are the guys that are innovating, these are the guys that are building the applications, so give them the tools that they need. So how does OpenShift enable that developer productivity? Well, for us, whether you're in the code, build, test, deploy, monitor, or review lifecycle, we give you that consistent platform to allow you to do these different things, whether that's self-service provisioning, so you can get your infrastructure ready in a matter of minutes rather than sometimes waiting 6 weeks for infrastructure. That's that speed. Your choice of runtimes, you've probably been seeing some stuff today about the Red Hat runtimes and Quarkus and all these new cool tools that are coming down. Whether you're building Java apps, Spring-based apps, we give you the choice of those runtimes that you want to use, plus your development pipelines and everything you need to build your applications and monitor and run them. One great example that I love, and I like to give out some examples. I know you've seen a lot of Spanish examples today, so I didn't want to repeat them, so a different one. And this is Emirates NBD, a bank in the Middle East, and these guys actually built their WhatsApp banking service in 2 days. So that was the speed that they had in time to market. But the reason this story really interests me is that when I travel to the Middle East and talk to the other banks, they all talk about this story. Because this story has made waves out there about the speed and the innovation that Emirates were able to do. And the other banks now want to be able to catch up and do the same. And actually what it's done for Emirates is it's attracted a lot of the best talent from the other banks to Emirates because they see this as a cool, innovative company. And that's another trend that's happening in the market, that development platforms, Kubernetes-based development platforms, actually are seeing organizations able to attract better development talent. So it is really important. So what container platform should I choose? Now, I think you all know what I'm going to say, so there's no surprises here. If I said Pivotal, that'd be quite funny, actually, if I just put something else up there. The reason I want to talk about this is not so much to talk to you about OpenShift and features and functions, because there's lots of presentations. Just to explain what's happening in the market, and the takeaway I'd like from at the end of this session is that you're thinking about this. If you've not chosen a container platform, this is the thought process that you have. If we go back 3 to 4 years ago, I think it was very simple to make a decision on what container platform to choose because you had a choice between different orchestrators. So whether you like Cloud Foundry, whether you like Docker Swarm, or the new Kubernetes technology. We as Red Hat decided that Kubernetes was going to be the future, so we rebuilt OpenShift version 3 on Kubernetes. And we then released the first ever enterprise Kubernetes platform, which was OpenShift 3. The great news for us was that it was a huge success, and now this is what happens. This is the downside of being an open source company, because everyone can then say, oh, that's good, we'll do that as well. But what this means now I think for you as customers is, what container platform should you choose? Because everyone who comes through the door will be selling you a Kubernetes-based offering. And what I want to get out today is that Red Hat, yes, it's built on Kubernetes, but there's a lot more to OpenShift than just Kubernetes. And I was with a customer a couple of weeks back, and he actually said, well, why do we need to buy OpenShift? All the work you've done for Kubernetes now, we can just go and download it, and it'll be all great. So it's interesting now that this term Kubernetes seems to be the silver bullet for everyone that thinks that that's all they need. So we're going to talk a bit about that in a second. If you are going to choose a Kubernetes-based platform, which I think most people will today, I think it's really important to look at the history of the vendor you're talking to with Kubernetes. As I said, a lot of people have now jumped on to this bandwagon, and they're now providing a Kubernetes-based solution. But we've been working with Kubernetes since day one. So we helped Google open source this, and we've been working with them since day one to make sure that it's the platform that it is today and the product that it is today. This is, for me, the most important slide if you're looking at a Kubernetes-based platform, because you probably notice a name missing from there. I'm not going to say who, but it's a name you'll probably all know. This is all the commits to the code. So effectively, this is who's actually the driving force behind Kubernetes, who's actually investing their engineers, their time, their resource to make Kubernetes what it is today and what the future's going to be, and also fixing bugs and doing all that sort of stuff. And alongside Google, we're a leading contributor. So if ever you are going to have someone ask you to buy their container platform, this is all public information. Just check, do they actually contribute? Because why is that important? Number one, if you have a problem with Kubernetes, I'd want to talk to a company that actually understand it and are in that community. And number two, if I have an idea, an innovation, something that I think Kubernetes could do better, I want to work with an organization that has engineers in that upstream that could potentially take my idea and bring it to fruition. And that's what you get with working with Red Hat. Just to illustrate that a bit more, this is all of the special interest groups in Kubernetes. And the ones in red are what we lead or co-lead. So again, this is an example of what we are and what we do. And for us, it's been great. Our container strategy has certainly paid off. We're now by far the market leader in containers, and this has all been based on our decisions, and not just the decision on Kubernetes. You've probably seen with OpenShift version 4, if you've been in those sessions, The next thing for us is all around operators and building this ecosystem of ISV applications that operators can control and manage, plus your own built applications. That's going to be the next big thing within containers and operators, and we're the driving force behind that as well. So why do customers choose us? And this is the takeaway that I wanted you, not so much to say buy OpenShift, but just to think about these sorts of things. Number one, trusted enterprise Kubernetes. So many customers I speak to will start out with Kubernetes that they've just using the free open source software, and then they hit so many security issues. When Kubernetes releases, Red Hat typically releases OpenShift 3 or 4 months later with that version, because in that time frame, we are fixing all of the bugs and defects to make sure that when you have it, it's enterprise ready. The cloud-like experience everywhere, I mentioned about operators. We want you to feel with OpenShift that no matter what your infrastructure is, you're having that cloud-like experience. Day 2 operations, over-the-air updates, everything automated from an operational perspective. And as I mentioned, empowering developers to innovate. That's the key thing. Everything that's in that stack, they have the tools, whether they're building out Spring apps, Node.js, whatever it may be, we provide that within OpenShift. But for me, the real secret sauce is here. It's because, as you notice, this is Kubernetes, but there's also a lot of other open source projects, and that's what we do. We take the best of breed of open source and we put that and integrate it into OpenShift and deliver it for you. And to illustrate the challenge, this is what you'd have to do if you were to do it yourself. So if you wanted to build your own container platform, you would need to choose, and you wanted it to be fully open source. This is all the projects from the CNCF. And you would have to choose everything from monitoring, metrics, login, databases, authentication, authorization, et cetera, and you'd have to integrate them all with Kubernetes. You'd have to maintain that, manage that, update that. We do all of this for you with OpenShift. So this is the point I was making about, if you just look here, where's it gone? There's Kubernetes, obviously an important part, but all of this is important for OpenShift, for containers to run at scale. So that's what we provide above and beyond that Kubernetes layer, which I think is really important. The other thing to say is that most organizations now have a multi-cloud strategy. I assume, actually, show of hands, has your organization got multi-cloud? Anyone's going to put their hand up? Yeah? Okay, good. Because interestingly, about 18 months ago, I met lots of customers who said, actually, we're going to go all in on one cloud provider. And that was a bit like, oh, okay, you've just kind of decoupled yourself from proprietary technology. This is putting all your eggs in one basket. Whereas now, I don't meet a customer that doesn't say, I have a multi-cloud strategy. They have a preference of a cloud, they have a primary cloud, but they want the ability to be able to choose multiple infrastructures. And for me, again, this is one of the biggest selling points of OpenShift and what we do at Red Hat. We do not care about the underlying infrastructure in terms of we have no preference. You choose what your infrastructure is, whether that's going to be on-prem, whether that's going to be a public or private cloud. And then we give you that consistent experience for both your dev and your ops team across no matter what your footprint can be. And crucially, you build your application once, and it's portable. So if you've built an application on OpenShift on-premise, but you then want to run that same application on OpenShift on AWS, you don't have to rewrite the code for that application. So what we provide with OpenShift is really that multi-cloud approach, and it can be completely cloud agnostic. What you've probably seen as well, if you've been to the OpenShift 4 presentations, all of these providers here at the bottom, a lot of these, and up here, we're now providing automation for those installs. So whether that's a fully automated install or a user provision install, by the time we get to, I think, OpenShift 4.4, which will be hopefully later this year, pretty much every single one of these will be covered with both a fully automated install and a user provision. So that means that when it comes to installing OpenShift, you can have an OpenShift cluster up and running within minutes. We've already got some customers doing this with some of our automated installs. And as an example, I wanted to share was Cathay Pacific. Again, another good case study. Similar to what did they want? They wanted to be able to move applications without rewriting the code. But also for them, it was about speed. They were, before OpenShift, they did one deployment a week of a new feature or new service. Once they installed and got up and running with OpenShift, That's now changed to 200 deployments per day. And it's completely changed the way that they can offer good services and goods to their customers. So again, all public information, please go and take a look. Hopefully you'll get a copy of these slides, and there's a video that you can watch as well to hear about that. And just the OpenShift 4 platform. So to illustrate a little bit more for those who have not seen it. So as I said, Kubernetes is just one layer, a very important layer, but just one. What we've really done with OpenShift 4 is then provided, as we said, that cloud-like experience everywhere with all of the automated operations. So you're going to see things like over-the-air updates. On your iPhone, when you have an app and you need to update it, you click, it updates. That's the experience you're going to get with OpenShift 4. But the key thing for me is then all these things on top. So we mentioned this, all of that secret sauce, those cluster services that you need to really run applications in production at scale. That's all provided for you. The application services, so from a development perspective, you may have seen the stuff that's coming out in OpenShift 4 around service mesh and serverless to help you build those microservices architectures. And all of the development tooling, with Tekton and the Kubernetes pipelines now that we're building. So this is what OpenShift 4 looks like if you had to stack it on top. And that's, I guess, for me, the takeaway today is that if you're thinking about doing a container platform yourself and you're looking at Kubernetes, think about all these additional components that you need, and do you really want to build that yourself? Because most customers I speak to who start out, stop, and then say, actually, it's taking up too much resource. And also, when you're looking at other providers as well and comparing, make sure that you're getting this depth of services, because in the market today, sometimes we do just see container platforms being about Kubernetes. And just to summarize on the last couple of slides, this is about making sure that both dev and ops have a great experience. So we always say OpenShift is that common currency between bringing dev and ops teams together. And what we do at Red Hat as well is around our innovation labs is actually helping bring those teams together to build stuff together. But for us, it's about, it doesn't matter where you're doing this, whether that's on-prem, in the cloud, on the edge, whatever your infrastructure is, and also whatever workload. And that's really important because we don't just focus on the new cloud-native 12-factor applications. We also look at what your legacy estate of applications are as well, and how do you want to containerize them? How do you want to move them into the cloud? OpenShift is both for the old world and the new to bring everything into containerization, if indeed that's what you need. So, yeah, and as much as this is a little bit of a show-off slide, say, hey, look at us, we're so wonderful. This is really important, again, because we've got over 1,000 OpenShift customers who have done this. They're betting their business on Red Hat. So this is just to say, if you're thinking about going for OpenShift, you're looking at containers, you're in safe hands. We've got a lot of experience in this, and we've got a lot of organizations who are doing this for all different reasons. And finally, just how you can consume. Some of this may be new to you. Apologies if you already know this. So we have our self-managed platform, OpenShift Container Platform, an offering on IBM Cloud, which is hosted. For anyone who's an Azure customer, you can now have OpenShift as a managed service. That's not even a Red Hat offering, that's a Microsoft offering. So you purchase that through Microsoft. But it's a joint managed offering between Red Hat and Microsoft, co-located teams, giving you the best of both worlds of Azure and OpenShift. And then, of course, an OpenShift dedicated, which is Red Hat's managed service. And then we do managed integration even on top of that for your middleware, if that's what you need. And that's the end. And I've got 50 seconds left, so I've timed that brilliantly. Thank you.